So to start, Paul gave me some directions.
Okay.
I wanted to talk
I'd
about.
watch out for that.
I know. I wanted to talk about the actual location that we're in right now, because I know that this place means a lot to you.
Yeah. We've been here, geez, it's going on 25 years probably coming here. I think it's called IIWII now, but we know it as SST. And not only do we do all our rehearsals and stuff out here, but we did all the signals stuff that we did during the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. And everybody on the crew here, friends and family. So yeah, it's nice.
And so if you came together here during COVID, was that kind of the first time that you guys were linking back up?
No, we had run rehearsals for tours here for years before, and we had been playing again since 2016. Because actually we thought we were going to break up again right before COVID. And then My Chemical Romance called us and they were like, no, but we're getting back together and you have to tour with us. And we were like, oh, we thought we were done. So yeah, like all this bonus time is thanks to them.
Yeah. The loose structure of what I wanted to talk about as well is like these 3 anniversaries that are happening.
Great.
Obviously there's other albums in between, but like the arc of them and how they all interplay. And I guess that's kind of like my first question is, how do you feel like they're all related? Like what's the through line?
I think Full Collapse and No Devolution, like they're the most connected to me because they're kind of at either end of our catalogs. One is like the most raw first concept of Thursday that had like the biggest impact probably. And then No Devolution is sort of like all the way at the other end when we had tried a million different experiments and really messed with what we were doing. We finally arrived at a place where it was like, well, this is the other end of the spectrum from the raw innocent. You know, this is like, we really know what we're doing and there's a lot of subtlety and there's like, you know, stuff that we have been really trying to make work through the other records that always felt like, well, that's a cool record, but did we get all the way where we were trying to get to? You know, it's like we finally got there with No Devolution and they came out 10 years apart to the week. So if they feel very like bookends to me. And, you know, we technically had a record before Full Collapse, but it was different lineup. It was our demo tape that we convinced a label to put out. So, you know, Full Collapse feels like the real beginning to me. And City by the Light Divided was sort of the first step in the direction of No Devolution. So I think they are quite connected in a way. And for me, War All the Time feels totally outside that arc.
Really?
You know, yeah, it's a very different, like a claustrophobic kind of like, that is the band that we became after we were touring a year and a half on Full Collapse, like such a fierce, like heavy, intense band. You know what I mean? And that's a little bit outside of what these other 3 records are that are a little more like influenced by like the New Romantics and New Wave and goth music. And War All the Time is kind of like pushed outside of that a little bit. It's such an angry, claustrophobic record. And these 3 are a little more like along the line, which tends to be a little more like lonely, sad, but hopeful. Like it's sort of this mix of kind of melancholy-ish type stuff. So I see those 3 records being really connected. And I think Common Existence, which is the other record in the middle there, is also outside of it, but in a totally different way. So
on the spectrum of bands who have a really strong, steady sonic through line, and bands like AFI who like really try and zigzag, like where do you feel like Thursday falls?
You know, at the time, I think people thought we were changing too much. But I think looking back at the body of work, it's pretty steady in one direction. You know what I mean? It just kept getting more and more expansive, more collaborative, I'd say. Like the last record we wrote in the studio, the band would play all morning. And as soon as we had a song that we liked, like completely starting from scratch, they would print a live version of it. I would take the live version and go off to write lyrics to it, and they would finish recording the song, and after dinner I would sing the song. So we would do like a song a day that way. And it was just like we let it happen, whereas the other records we would write 5 days a week, 7 hours a day for 18 months, and then go into the studio with this like compacted, finished, crushed record, you know? And so it was like, I think a lot of the things that changed were process. But as far as like the subject matter and the deepening of one line of thought, it was pretty much in one direction. You know, we didn't stay the same, but we were on one path, I'd say.
I can see that. I mean, as somebody who's been listening to those 3 albums a lot and always has, but I feel like it is really cohesive, and there's something that's like inherently Thursday about all of it that makes so much sense. I know there was a lot of pressures going on at the time as well throughout those 10 years that probably, I mean, like even externally, like from fans and things were different. I mean, maybe they still are in certain ways now, but in terms of like what the scene meant and like.
Yeah, I think at the time, you know, we still used words like sell out and like meant them, you know what I mean? It's almost gotten to the point where I wish we'd start using it again. It's like, you know, you got to stand for something. It's like, I think you can put too much pressure on people to be a certain way that you want them to be, but also like, it's like stand for something, you know what I mean? But yeah, at the time I remember the fans wanted us to stay Full Collapse forever. And the labels wanted us to become, you know, some superstar version of the band that nobody was sure. You know, some people would say, oh, you're going to be Nirvana, you're going to be U2. You know, probably if anybody actually listened to the band, they'd say like the closest you could find is The Cure, you know what I mean? But we were always just such a weird band, and I had so many preoccupations, you know, as a singer, more as a writer, I'd say. And I also have like a strange voice, and the band has such amazing chemistry that they focus more on the way a part would feel than the structure of a song. And I think all those things prevented us from becoming superstars, but they've also made it that when you look back at Thursday, it means something to people because it's so outside of what everybody else was doing that it just seems like, oh, okay, they're artists now. You know, I can say they actually mean something. And to me, that's all I've ever wanted. You know, it's like my favorite artist who I wanted to sing like growing up was PJ Harvey. You know what I mean? It's like I aspired to her, you know what I mean? And to me, that's not about like finding that one moment where you have a super mega hit or you step into the mainstream and you never look back. It's about like, what do I care about and what am I building? You know, and that's something that I've always admired about her and sort of the artists of that era, maybe the Bjorks and, you know, people like that. So
do you feel like you had a moment in those 10 years where you felt the opposite, where you did want the superstardom and there were contemporary people that were blowing up that you were like, I want to be that?
You know, I think there's always like a contradiction that is like, you want your band to be beloved and you want it to be the best band in the world and you want it to be acknowledged as the best band in the world, but you don't want to have to do any of the things that would bring you there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, well, I remember we had a label head who stepped into the major label that we were on, and he came to see us and he said that it was the best live band he had ever seen in his life. He was like, you're superstars. You're gonna be famous. Like I can't believe I inherited you as band. We're gonna do this. I just need to find somebody to write you some songs. And I remember being like, oh, we don't do that. And he was like, oh. And the O is like, you're not gonna be famous. Like, you guys are so weird. I could get somebody to write you some hits, but if you're not willing to do that, then we've got nothing to talk about from here on. And so I think it's like when people tell you you're going to be huge, you say like, well, maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was talking to Norman last night about it because, you know, Texas is the reason right before they broke up, everybody wanted them. And it was like millions of dollars being thrown at them. And Norman was like, no, I would not do that in a million years. It's not the life for me. And I think my reaction was like, at the time, I was like, I guess if you're telling me that's what we're going to be that. But if I even look back at it and think of like, well, I'll have to have security. I can't go in public. I can't take the train. Like those aren't trades that I'd actually want to make, you know? So it's a difficult thing because you want the art to be loved, but you don't want to have to be famous either. At least for me, for the type of person that I am, I don't want to have to be famous.
Yeah, right. I'm sure there's things people would want to pick and choose out of the experience.
I'd love the money and the exposure for my art, but I want to be able to go wherever I want and live a normal life, I guess.
Yeah, that's perfect. When you say you had preoccupations as a writer, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think like narrative construction, like the seat of the narrative and where you put it has been something that from the very first record has been such a huge thought process for me. And Full Collapse, when we wrote it, I was still in school and I was working on my thesis, which was about the narrative I and what I means and are we done with I as a concept? You know, I was very like postmodern. I was like, we got to get rid of I as a concept. We got to come to collective storytelling. And that's what Cross Out the Eyes was about.
Yeah.
You know, there's this great scene in Jane Eyre where she does a portrait and she rubs out the eyes. And I thought, oh, that's a really great metaphor for like getting rid of this I, you know, and I thought that that's kind of what DIY was a perfect vehicle to do that in, because it's this collective notion, you know, we're a community. It's not about like being alone in your bedroom listening to music like I did when I was a lonely little kid. It was like about being together. And even to me, like backup vocals, all the songs are jammed with vocals because I didn't want one point of view. I wanted a lot of like people talking to each other. And that's why I also like the lyrics quote other songs and then bend them and turn them and ask questions of them. It's like, I wanted all the music to be in dialogue with each other. You know what I mean? I want to ask the person singing that, are you sure? You know? So that's like one of the ways in which there's a preoccupation that follows through all the records. And No Devolution especially has this sort of like continually like trying on new narration, like no answers. This every lyric is a riddle. So there's these questions like, you know, what can fasten two but only touches one? That's like a wedding ring. Like there's all these different like questions that the answers to them are the story about the divorce that I was going through at the time. So yeah, it's just things like that I just want to revisit them and try them again, do it better. You know, a lot of people change subject through the years, but I want to like unfold another layer on the same subject. So it's like you have understanding in a car crash on Full Collapse. And then the first song on City by Light Divided is the other side of the crash, where it's like flips perspective on who's telling the story. So yeah, I just, you know, and also like car crashes, plane crashes, trains, you know, I just think there's something about the way modern society moves at this accelerated pace that like we didn't evolve, to me, that I find fascinating. You know what I mean? Like, what is the psychological effect that it has on us as a people? How are we keeping up with the things that are changing rapidly around us? Like, I really like, those are the kinds of things I think about all the time. And, you know, in my writing, since the band got back together, I've thought more and more about the kinds of changes that we can't see or think about, you know, the changes in the understanding of physics, like quantum physics and stuff like that. So anyway, it's a very specific sort of approach to lyric writing and to world building inside the music. You know, the music feels quite foreign. Like, there are great bands of our era that we get compared to, but bands like Taking Back Sunday, where it's like, it's pretty straightforwardly a lot about like relationships and girls and betrayals of friends. And that stuff is so important. You know what I mean? The way people interact with each other is perennial for a reason. You know what I mean? Every great storyteller tells those stories. It's just not what I was interested in, you know? And I think like this music sounds like it too, where they kind of have a more traditional song structure and talking about love and relationships and betrayals. And we have this sort of like angular, weird, like parts that don't belong together, smashing into each other. And I think that some of the influence that we've had on, you know, the scene or the genre or whatever has a lot to do with putting things that seemingly shouldn't go together and making them work together. I think that was like a big part of what people took from us. Like, when, you know, I used to hear a band like the guys from A Day to Remember would say, we're so influenced by you guys. And I like, how? You know what I mean? I just hear different parts of their songs and be like, that doesn't sound like us. That doesn't sound like us. That doesn't sound like us. And then it kind of clicked one day. It's like, oh, we like sort of opened the door for like, yeah, those don't belong together. Put them together anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they really ran with that. So, you know, I think it's, as we've talked about with other things, it's really hard to see the label from inside the bottle, right? So what I think is important about Thursday is often not what people love about Thursday.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I like love to read comments, like Reddit and YouTube comments, like before I like dive in with an interview and stuff like that. And it is really interesting the different experiences people have with your music. And personally, as like, I didn't go to any classes as a student except for English.
Yeah.
And I was like really intense about it.
Yeah.
Like everybody hated me. And like your music kind of is like, it like satiates that same thing where I'm like reading Shakespeare and like noting in the fucking margins and like just pissing everyone in the class off so much.
I love it.
Like there's so much to like unpack. And the writing is it stands so far apart, I think, from, at least it did when I was growing up, from like the other music I was listening to.
Yeah.
In the scene.
I think that's fair for better and for worse. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just sort of its own animal. And That's why the people that love it so much. And that's why the people that don't get it are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I feel like, but like people like not getting it or loving it is like, that's kind of like amazing.
That's the goal. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it's like people hating it or loving it is one thing, but like people not getting it is like, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah. And it's way better than people being like, they're okay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody,
like,
I think there are strong feelings attached to your music, and that is a compliment no matter what feelings they are.
Yeah.
You know, and also like the idea of like community and dialogue. I mean, also like something I think about all the time with like New Jersey bands specifically, because like so much emotional, brilliant music came out of New Jersey in similar places where maybe like there was more of like a need for outsider culture. Like that seems like another thing that's, you know, you said you were lonely listening to music, and then, you know, these basement shows are
changed who I was as a person on a fundamental level. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your like first experience with that?
First experience. Oh, that's a really good question. I wonder if I can find it back in my memory. Yeah, with the basement, I think it would probably have to be seeing this band, You and I, from New Brunswick. They were this amazing, heavy, emotional band with 3 people who sang, 3 people who wrote songs. So they were kind of like, in terms of heaviness, they were like Converge. But in terms of like their approach to writing songs, it was like Fugazi, where you had like these different personalities that would step to the front and tell a different kind of story. And the lyrics were so personal that it wasn't like Converge, because Converge can be quite impenetrable. You know what I mean? And so instead, this felt like this open book. Yeah, I just remembered that people in the crowd at different times would come and take the microphone and tell a story about the song that they just heard. They'd be like, yeah, the first time I heard this, and I'd be like, what? Audience participation, what is this? You know, and it was a small show and people were, you know, like feeling very viscerally about it. And I remember my college roommate being like he was like a youth crew kid, and he was just kind of like, oh man, stick a tap in these guys, like so many tears, just get it all out, you know what I mean? And I was like, now this like awakes something in my mind about being vulnerable with other people around and being embraced for it instead of kind of outcast from it, you know? And then I just kind of like dove in really quickly because we were freshmen and we went to the Student Arts Council at Rutgers and, you know, wanted to put on shows. And the first thing the president said was like, Ink and Dagger is banned from ever playing Rutgers. And I looked at my roommate, he was like, fuck this, let's get out of here. So we left and I was like, man, I do want to do shows though. And he's like, we'll move off campus. We'll get a bunch of people together. We'll rent a house. I swear, I think our rent was like $400 each person or something, you know what I mean? It was ridiculous. And we'll start throwing shows. And I couldn't imagine it being that easy. And he threw the first like 10 of them. And I was like, oh, it's not hard, you know? And I was still going to Kinko's and making flyers for all the shows. And he was like, just put it online. But in 1997, I was like, online? What do you mean? I don't even know what that is. He's like, you have an email. And I was like, I have to go to the computer lab to use my email. I'm not going to do that. But he was on it, you know, he was using like Angel Fire and GeoCities and stuff. And people were finding out about the show that way. And, you know, we were doing flyers that said like, ask a punk, you know what I mean? And it just became like this beautiful hub. And I think New Jersey also, in addition to being, it's sort of a perfect storm why New Jersey is so good. I think you're outside of New York City, so you can do it so much cheaper than they can in New York. You have basements, huge advantage. But also you're like really close to Philly. You're pretty close to Baltimore and DC. And then like Massachusetts, if they want to get to New York or any of these places, they need to stay somewhere. You probably can't stay in the city. So they would come and stay with us even before we did a show for them. Like bands would just crash at our place. That's how I met the drive-in guys. Like after one of their shows, I was like, feel free to come crash at ours, you know? And so it just became this place that everybody had to pass through. And because like there was nothing else going on, like the shows were really good. You could get like an unknown band and get like 40, 50 people to come see them. Like nobody's ever heard of them and still people will show up. And so people would be like, New Brunswick is where it's at. You know what I mean? And then once everybody wants to play New Brunswick and it gets known as like a good place, well then saying you're a band from New Brunswick suddenly carries like all this weight. So people are like, let's start a band. You know, that's why we started doing it. It's just like, let's play one of these great shows. You know what I mean? Like all our friends are there. Like, let's just try it. And it was like, oh, the band turned out to be good, you know? But I don't think like, it didn't really matter to me whether we were good or not at the beginning. I just wanted to be a part of I just wanted to be there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what it is. I just did an interview with it's like the new group Bird Legs with like Eric Ozen from Nerve Agents
Oh,
and
wow.
Jade from AFI.
I haven't
and, like,
even heard this yet. This sounds great.
like Gary from like Corduroy. It's like all of these guys, and it's like just like super old school hardcore, like
Yeah.
East Bay hardcore.
That's
And
fun.
it's sick. And like I asked, like, why now? Why are they doing this? And they're like, we just want to hang out with our friends. And I'm like, that's so cool that it's, you know, 2026. You guys have had like careers, and like that's still what brings you together to make hardcore.
I find that super inspiring. Like, it's like, I've never even been a West Coast guy. Like, I like some of those bands, but like, I find that so inspiring. It's sort of like, it reminds me of like the Flea solo record, where it's just like, I've never even been a fan, but like, I kind of love this.
Yeah.
Like, you're just doing it because like, you're an interesting person. You want to say something, and it's like not in keeping with the times at all. You know what I mean? It's just like completely like, I'm going to do this. And because of that, I find it like totally charming and beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but that's like the spirit of hardcore or like punk music. It's just like, I just want to hang out with my friends.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like that's just like unanimous. That's probably why all these bands started, you know?
Right.
Hang out and like spread some message, maybe.
Yeah. And I think like, you know, people will say, oh, because of AI, everything's becoming like homogenized. And it's like, that's true. But I do think that like we had done that to ourselves before AI did it to us, you know, where people wanted everything to be like successful. So it started being like, well, it's easier to be successful if we make it a little more like this. And everybody's making it like a little more in the middle, a little more in the middle. So when you see people just like making something on the edge again, it's just like, doesn't matter if it's popular or not. It's just hardcore. It's like, that's so awesome. It's like, that's so human to just do it because, you know.
Yeah. And it's also like, I appreciate this as well. It's like not for nostalgia's sake.
Right.
Which like, I can appreciate nostalgia. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Comes up when we're talking about anniversaries.
Sure.
Is like artists and their relationship to nostalgia. Because some, especially in the alternative space, it's like something people want to reject.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, like go like head first into. So what's it like for you revisiting these albums and like kind of those times? And
it's very strange because I actually like, sometimes I don't feel any nostalgia at all. And I just think like, these are great songs and I'm happy to play them. And I'm glad for that I'm just like, these are still good. Awesome. And it's cool to play them, you know? And then there are other times, like, especially when we would do Full Collapse front to back in order, that because we have played these songs so many times that they don't make me feel anything, especially nostalgic. But when we play them in order, it does bring me back kind of, you know? So in the past, when we've played Full Collapse in order, like I have like had moments where I've been like, oh yeah, I remember, oh, that's so good. Like, I love that. You know, I think nostalgia is a great thing if you don't have to get lost in it or live in it. You know what I mean? Got to stay alive now. You know what I mean? Not even from like an artist point of view. It's just like, to me, it's like, well, it's just like a certain amount is healthy to look back and appreciate life. And a certain amount is like, now we move on, you know? I used to think of it all in terms of like what it means for a band or what it means as an artist. And now it's just like, what? How does it affect you as a person? You know what I mean? Like at this point, I just am like, I've not only chosen the life of like a starving artist, but I've lived it for so long. You know what I mean? Like that's my whole life now, 27 years out of 40s, you know, 46 or whatever. I guess more 28 years out of 47 now. But it's like, that's just the fact of who I've been. So really the more important question is like on a human level, like what does it mean to have nostalgia for this stuff? You know, it's like, am I ready to throw in the towel? Like, no, not really. So I can afford to look back.
Yeah, because you don't feel like it hinders you.
Not at all. Like I have so many projects that I'm like so swamped in that a little looking back is fine, you know? And I feel like touring with Anthony last summer is sort of like a reminder of, we were reminding each other of opposite things because he was like, you got to try this new thing. You got to do this thing. I want you to write a song every day. I want you to do, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay. You know, like I'm already doing all this stuff, but sure. Like, why not more? Cause he does like so much all the time.
So
right.
much.
And I was like on the opposite side, which I can say now because it's come out, but I was like, you should do the circus stuff. Cause he wasn't sure, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I want to like go back there to that time in my life. And I was like, go, like, that's yours. You know what I mean? As much as it's anybody else's, it's also yours. And like, you can celebrate that and do it and it'll be beautiful. And it's like a great reason to remember how great all those songs are and reconnect with people, you know, it's beautiful. So we were like kind of going in opposite directions and we both rubbed off on each other.
I like that. And that's such a good point, I think, because I guess now thinking about the people that I've spoken to who are kind of like about nostalgia, like it's like a cringe moment for them. Like it tends to be people who don't have a lot of other projects.
Right.
I can only imagine that there's like some type of resentment about like, oh, this is what people want from me. Like they're not.
Yeah.
But that makes total sense that it's just like a part of both of your portfolios, and I'm glad he's doing that too.
Me too. I can't wait. We get to play with him a couple times, so I'm really excited. Yeah.
Which of your albums feels the most personal to you? Is it? I would guess as an outsider that it's No Devolución.
Well, I think probably each band member would have a slightly different take on it, but for me, it's tough. That's a really tough call. I think probably Full Collapse, actually. Like, I really had like a very strange childhood where I like lost a ton of friends by the time I was in high school. We had these train tracks behind our high school and like people got hit by them all the time. And then there was like this group suicide in the next town over from me and stuff. There's like been books written about it and stuff, but it really like affected me in such a deep way that I can only say that looking back. But Full Collapse is basically a record about all those things that happened, like sort of one right after the other. It got to the point where like, I remember like junior year in high school, I'd go to class and I'd be so sad I'd like fall asleep on the desk and the teacher would be like, he's fine. You know what I mean? Like just like so much stuff would happen to people in our school that it'd be like, just let them sleep, like that's been rough on everybody, you know? But yeah, like Full Collapse to me was such a like, it was a very freeing record. You know, I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to talk about all this stuff now. That really, I think, like altered who I was as a person. Like it really let me become somebody who expressed myself in a personal way. And so I think that one will always be like my most personal, because it was like the moment that I let myself do that. And whereas like No Devolución is like, you know, it's got some of the most personal things that I've ever written about on it. It's still like, by then I was used to opening myself up. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But like, you know, this song, the part that they're about to play, there's like a long build up at the end of the song, I think is like my favorite moment I've ever written, most personal moment I've ever written. And at the end of this whole record about this sad divorce breakup of somebody that I still loved very much while we were going through it, I sort of remembered like, wait, I should have a moment of like why it was so good, you know? And so there's a little postcard at the end of this song. I think it's just so tender and so sweet. And I just like, every time we play it, it just like fills me with so much love to remember how much like I loved this person, you know? So yeah, that's pretty personal too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I also feel like the way you write, it's, again, it like needs, I hate the word unpack because it's so corny, but like, I don't know, it's like a kind of, there's like a discovery process of like,
yeah.
And I'm sure most people don't get to like the exact story of what happened, but it definitely feels like it's vulnerable, but it's not a diaristic in a direct way.
Yeah. That's why I always feel comfortable talking about what the songs are about, because I think that even if I were to try to explain it, what it is, there's clearly so many layers of other things happening that like you can't pin it down in a way that pushes you out of the song. And I do think that like you should leave, I think it's David Lynch or maybe it's Paul Schrader. I can't remember which director it is, but one of them said like, you need to leave space to dream. Like you can't reveal so much that you push the person out. You say, this is my song. Here's what it means. Get out of it. You have to say like, here's the halfway that you can make about anything you want to make it about. I think you have to leave that in your art. You know what I mean? And that's a space that I've lived so many times with other people's music that even when they say the song's about this, I think like, to you it is. You know what I mean? Like, but it's also my song now.
Yeah. What's an example of that?
I think probably The Downward Spiral was like one of the first records that I did that with, where I was like, this is about my life. I don't care what you want it to be about, Trent. And I actually had a really funny experience with him where I interviewed him for Alternative Press. And I said like, there's one moment in your whole catalog where it's so different from everything else, where you say a woman's name, you say Annie. I just want to talk to you about that moment. And he like, kind of like, I think was maybe either taken aback or offended or something by the question, because he was like, she's a real person and this is her phone number. And I was like, okay, that's not what I'm asking, but okay. Like, I get what you're saying is basically like, how personal do you want to get, creep? You know what I mean? Like,
that's so interesting.
But I just was like, it's so like, why once? You know what I mean? Like, this feels so out of character. What could this possibly mean? And I think he was kind of like, it's none of your business, which is also fair. But I do think that like that record, it really didn't matter what it was about because it was so personal to me. You know, I put those headphones on every night for years. And we just like live inside the sounds. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Even the lyrics, like, sure, the lyrics maybe were important, but the sounds had a meaning.
Totally.
I mean, and that's why, like, I think sometimes when people say to me, like, this song must be so personal for you, Geoff, it's like, I think it's personal for everybody here. It's just personal in different ways, and they mean different things to different people. You know, and the relationship between the people in the band is reflected in different times of turbulence and togetherness too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like I've had experiences like you did with Downward Spiral, like sometimes because of the album itself, but a lot of times because of what was going on for me at the time. And it just like, I mean, that's also how I listen to music, is like a need more than anything, and like, or like a salve or whatever. And then I like listen to it obsessively.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. Until it should be worn out, but it's like,
and I wait 10 years to listen to it again.
And then you're transported immediately back into that feeling, which is pretty heavy too.
When Trent has talked about that album, he talks about how he went into it like as a concept, like an overarching body of work, rather than making songs and then putting them together. Like which one are you closer to when you, like, what is the process for you?
You know, we have one record like that, which is War All the Time, where before we started making the record, I started putting up like slogans from the record all around. I was like, I don't know how this is going to fit, but it's going to be in the record somewhere. So like, you know, we have a budget. We're on a major label now. Like, I'm going to do some work and like put up these signs that say like things, you know, and you're going to have to start getting used to the kind of like mindset that this record's going to be made in. I don't think it's going to be hard because we've all been in a van for the last 18 months. So like, I think we're probably all in pretty similar headspace here, you know, very claustrophobic, you know, that's what I always say about that record. It's so claustrophobic. And I think that it worked because if you were young after 9/11, like your mind space became pressed in on every side. And I think like the surveillance state, the NSA, all these things started pressing in, and it made everybody quite claustrophobic. So I think that's why that record holds such a special part of our catalog, because it's like the one that feels completely timely, you know what I mean? Even to the point where it feels prophetic, because we just keep on, there's that meme that's like, born too late to die in the Middle East, born too early to die in the Middle East, born just in time to die in the Middle East. You know what I mean? That's sort of what it, like that record feels like to me, is like, oh wow, is it still timely? Like, that's a shame. You know what I mean? Because it means we're not learning anything or changing anything, you know?
Yeah. But was it specifically about 9/11, or was
No, it was
more
about the
like
mindset of being alive and young at that time. You know, there are a lot of things that are used metaphorically from it, you know, for the workforce, drowning is very like, you know, falling from the top floor. It's like the picture of the falling man, you know, which I think is the reason that some of those images are so powerful, is because I think that they were already like images in people's minds before they happened. You see two giant towers, and two of the tallest buildings in the world, you see them, and you start thinking about falling off them. You start thinking about somebody blowing them up or them falling down. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of comes with it. People, you know, for a long time, there was this like postmodern deconstruction of comic books that said like there would be no supervillains if there weren't a Batman. You know what I mean? It's like the good calls forth the evil that balances it or whatever, you know? And I think that like, there are a lot of concepts like that, like the Twin Towers, that contain their ending implicit in their beginning. You see them and you just think about them falling down. You know what I mean?
Well, isn't that kind of similar to the like A City by the Light Divided, at least in title?
Yeah.
And that poem that it's...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, originally it was supposed to be a double record. It was going to be one like brutally heavy record. It was my idea, and the second one would be the more experimental new direction that we were going. And instead, you know, my band was tolerated only so far into that direction. Like at this velocity was kind of like this may be too far for the rest of us. And that's how like United Nations started. I was like, oh, I'll take all those songs and just go make that kind of a record. Yeah. But I originally sort of envisioned like a second disc that was like way heavier than War All the Time even, you know? Also, I wanted it to be a free record. Years before Radiohead, and the rest of my band were like, what do you mean free? I was like, I don't know. I just think like everybody can get it for free downloading it. Why don't we just give it to them and not make it a weird thing?
Yeah.
And the major label was like, it's not why we paid all this money for you, bro.
It's not the point.
Yeah.
So all of it happened in 10 years,
Yeah.
which is wild.
Yeah. Well, it's also really strange to be a band for like nearly 28 years and have like a pretty decent sized body of work, but that all happened in 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I think about sometimes I saw a post on Facebook that was like, today is like the 40th anniversary, like the 40th birthday of Metallica. Everybody thank Metallica for 7 great years of music. But like that's kind of like what Thursday has going on right now, where it's just like, yeah, we have some songs since the bands got back together. The songs are great, but like the main crazy period of Thursday was this 10 years where we were living together in a practice space. It was an old textile factory that used to be Sonic Youth's practice space, and we all lived there together. And we'd just wake up and be in the room where you play. So it'd be like, well, let's go get Dunkin' Donuts and write some more songs, you know? That was kind of how it was.
Do you think there will be another, I mean, it's like, I have to ask this. Do you think there will be another album?
I really have no idea. You know, it's like, even now when we write, it's such a combustible thing that not living together makes it a lot scarier. Because when you're living together, you could fight, you could fall out, you could tell each other that, you know, you write stupid stuff and I hate you. And then you have to like go and watch a movie with them later that night. And the next morning you're like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, this song's actually pretty cool or whatever. So I don't know. Like, I think that everybody doesn't want to fight the way that we used to fight. But when we start writing, we start fighting. So it's kind of like, makes you not want to write.
Yeah.
You know, it's also tough because like for me, the person that was the most, I could talk to him without talking was Tom from Thursday. Like the two of us we just perfectly understood each other. Like it was like we were brothers, you know, like when we met Good Charlotte, actually, they thought we were also twins, me and Tom, which we were like, whoa, we're not even related. And like twins thought we were twins. Like that's really cool. So for me, it's like sometimes I feel that like that my guy on my team, because we always had teams that we do fighting against, like my team is like down my guy. And now I have to be like on a team with Steve. And Steve was like the main guy that I would fight. And I love Steve. And like Steve might be like my favorite person after all these years, the person that like has been there for me through the most and that I would just like love. But I want to fight with him.
Yeah.
I want to have my guy and then I want to fight with this guy who I love.
Like family.
Yeah. So it's just, you know, finding that new balance is just like a lot different. And, you know, I think when we do it, it's great. Like I think White Bikes was super easy to write and I love that song.
Yeah.
And Frozen Lake was so hard to write and I love that song.
I love that song.
But it was like, that was like a real brawl, you know?
Yeah. Which one came out on New Year's? One came out on New Year's,
Frozen
right?
Lake, yeah.
Am I right? Hit my partner up so we could listen to it.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. Yeah, it's funny. That was actually the first song out of the 3 that we released. That was the first song we wrote. But we had to put it away because it was like, like too much heartbreak. Too much like we're trying to kill each other.
Is it because you guys have contrasting ideas?
Yeah, and I think not just contrasting ideas about like what a song could be, but contrasting ideas about what Thursday should be. So it's like, should it be rock and roll? Like, should it be simple like Motley Crue? Should it be complex and like math rocky? Should it be that, you know, it's all these different things.
Yeah.
And you get everybody like, well, this part that I wrote to be this way. And then Tucker being like, I wouldn't play it like that. You're like, well, now what do we do?
Yeah.
Because like I wrote it and I want it to be like this, and you were like, I won't play it like that. And the truth is like that fight is often the tension between those ideas getting pushed into a new territory is often what made Thursday good, because nobody could dictate what the band should be.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the collective wisdom was better than the visionary.
Yeah. Do you feel like No Devolución was a tense record to make? Because that one it is such a different direction.
That is really funny. That one wasn't tense at all. But it was just like after years of fighting, it's almost like we knew it was over. It was like, I literally sometimes I'm like, is it because we knew it was over already? You know what I mean? Like we were just like, yeah, it's cool. You play it like that, bro. You do you. Like, I'm good. I'm not going to fight about it. And then like, we just did actually have chemistry and we could just let go and take our hands off the wheel and it would be beautiful. But it was also like we were living in the studio, you know, it was a residential studio. We'd get up in the morning, have our coffee and just play.
Yeah.
And it's just this beautiful freeing thing. And now everybody has like jobs and kids and this and that. And I do think that like we long for the time to be free, you know, but also like it's tough because there's new members and new people, and fighting has to begin anew, you know, to find out who this person is. Like it's one thing to let go with all these guys that we fought for 10 years together.
Yeah. It's not as cute.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad we get to play this like No Devolution. Like there's a bunch of songs we never, because we broke up so soon after this record came out, there's a lot that we didn't get to play from it. And now learning them and playing them, it's like, oh, that's really beautiful.
I know, I never hear you guys play that many songs live.
Like there's a couple that are staples.
Yeah.
But it's a couple.
Yeah.
You know?
That'll be fun. So there's probably songs you've never played live.
There's 2 songs we've never played live that we're doing Night After Tomorrow, you know, for the first time.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting arc you guys have had. But it also, I mean, I feel like it goes back to the nostalgia conversation, which is like, we have all these other things going on. So that's how we can tour and play these songs that are from that period.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting too, because I think like, you know, there was a long time when, not a long time, there's a short window of time where people said to us, like, you're the next Nirvana, like you're breaking this whole scene open. And then like we did kind of shepherd the next Nirvana through, you know what I mean? Like in like helping My Chemical Romance to get started, we did kind of bring them through, and that sort of puts us in the place of being like the Sonic Youth of our scene. And the funny thing is like, that's actually like, what a dream to be the Sonic Youth of the scene, you know, the sort of weird older brother who's like just on a weird arc of their own, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's cool.
But also like you guys have such dedicated fans, like in terms of the scene, you're like canonized. I mean,
Yeah. That's nice. I feel very lucky all the time. Like even when it's brutally hard, which, you know, yesterday we were talking like, we was talking about Alexis on Fire, and he was like, yeah, it's weird. Like, you know, we do really well as far as bands go, you know, especially in like Canada. It's like we do really well. And the only one of us that's financially secure is the fireman, because he's got the fireman's pension. And it's like, I think most people would be like, what do you mean? Like the only one that's doing well is the fireman. You know what I mean? It was like, I think that would shock a lot of people, that it's like a blue collar job, like is way more secure than being a musician, you know, and like being a musician, you're constantly scared. Like when I get home, like, well, we have made enough to pay rent. Like, you know, what do you mean half the shows are sold out? It's like, yeah, and gas might double. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's all this stuff that you just can't predict.
It's so real. Are you writing another book?
Yeah, I'm on a page 160 of the new one. I think it's going to be longer than the first one though, and it's about revenge.
Is it also nonfiction?
Well, the first one's actually fiction, kind of. It's like autofiction.
Right.
This one is straight up fiction. Like it's about 2 brothers basically. It's about revenge, and it's about physics and God maybe, and the death penalty. Those are like the main themes of the book.
Damn, I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm really excited for people to see it. I'm also really excited to like get a first draft done, because it's really like, I'm really in it right now. You know what I mean? I'm lost in this other world, and I'm like, I need to take my head out of this other world a little bit.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I read your first book in like 2 days.
I love that. This one I don't think will be quite as page turner, because I think it's going to be at 160. I can feel that it's not going to be 270 like the last one. Like I'm like, oh, I'm not halfway through yet, you know? So who knows? Maybe a great editor will come in and be like, that's because you can cut this and this and this.
Well, that's exciting. I also had another question for you, because you always dress so well, and you obviously have a passion for perfume, as I saw in your Substack. Did that stuff come after you got sober, or has that always been?
The perfume did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the perfume, like, well, I mean, I always had like a little bit of like an interest and a respect for perfume. My mom always wore like sort of classics when I was a kid. She wore like Fracas and stuff like that, and Cabochard and stuff like that. Like, so I always like would smell her smelling nice. And, oh, Mom, it smells good, whatever. And my dad's a chemist. And so he mostly worked in industrial stuff, but at one point he did work for Reckitt and Coleman, and he worked with IFF, which is like one of the compounding houses that makes like big perfumes. And I remember him telling me when I was a kid, yeah, you know, I worked with some perfumers, and I got to tell you, like, we're all scientists. You guys are artists. Like, he was like, they're really like, they're making stuff. It's time. They use time as how they use their art, you know, because there's evaporation curves and all this stuff. So I found that interesting when I was a kid. And then I always liked to smell good on tour because everybody smelled so bad. So I would always be kind of like a little conscious of like, you know, I have like a scent, mostly just something fresh. But then when I got sober and I wasn't like snorting heroin and ruining my sense of smell, and I could smell everything again for the first time, I started getting interested in it. And then once like lockdown started, I got like really like fixated on exploring all these different things. And there was also a little bit of crossover with the psychedelics that I was interested in, because I, used psychedelics to get sober. And a bunch of the perfumers who lost their sense of smell from COVID retrained their nose using LSD.
Whoa.
It became like this, there's like a scientific paper on it where guys were like, I really don't want to do this, but like I'm going to try it out. And then being like, immediately it came back. Like immediately, like they had like take a little bit of LSD and then you smell this and you look at this picture. And you smell this and you look at this picture. And it was like
That's so fascinating.
Connecting these things that had disconnected. And so I got kind of into that. And then because I'm an addict, I got way too into it.
Yeah.
And had to like back off of it because I was like, I actually don't want to become a perfumer. So like, I don't need to know this much about perfumes. But I did like make friends with a bunch of perfumers and kind of like, they're so excited that somebody acknowledges that it's an art. You know what I mean? Like, really, you got that? Yeah, I got it. Like I have a friend, Sultan Pasha, who makes guitars in London. He teaches at the Osmotique, which is like the perfume museum in France. He teaches there and he's a really interesting guy, but he made a perfume out of his, like he has clinical depression, and he made a perfume about it where it starts off like really intense and melancholy. And by the end, it's comforting because he's like, by the end of a depressive episode, I'm like leaning into it. I'm like swimming in my depression. He's like, it's like a big comfy bed, but it has like all these like hospital smells in it stuff too. So it's like really like, it's a really intense perfume. He hasn't released it yet. I think he's a little worried about it, but
people don't want to smell like a hospital.
Yeah. And then clothing is sort of also from my mom. When she was like a student, she would get like patterns from Vogue at the time and make her own clothes. And then she was just always interested in McQueen and people that were real visionaries. She was very interested in. When I turned 18, she was like, let me buy you like one nice piece of clothing. Like, what do you want? And I loved Helmut Lang in the 90s. So I was like, I want that jacket. And she was like, no. I cannot afford that jacket, so like pick something else. And I was like, well, I also like Dries Van Noten. And she was like, okay, you can get that. So I got a little of that, but I always like had cut out all these pictures of Helmut Lang stuff. And then like, being in Thursday is like, I didn't really have an opportunity to dress up or any money to dress up.
Yeah.
So it was like very like everyday clothing for Thursday. And then we were on the cover of Spin and the stylist was like, put on this jacket. And I was like, oh my God, I love this jacket. I'm obsessed. Like it was kind of Helmut Lang-y, but it was like very Russian and just like beautiful. And afterwards I was like, you made me wear it on the cover of the magazine. Like I get to keep it. Like I can't not have this jacket that you made me wear on the cover of the magazine. She was like, it's literally the designer's prototype. Like if you take this, he'll never be able to get it produced. So I wrote him a letter and I was like, look, I gave it back. I didn't want to screw you, but like, what do you think? Like I wore this on the magazine. Like, would you send me it when it's finished? And he was starting a New York label called Cloak that became this big like cult menswear thing over like the next 5 years. Like all of Interpol would dress in it, all these guys would dress in it. And then he ended up becoming the creative director at Helmut Lang for a little while. And he's like become a friend. And so he makes clothing for me sometimes, like bespoke to like, he'll be like, I know your measurements. So I'm just going to work on this flight jacket for you. I'm going to work on the,
It's a good friend to have.
Yeah, I'm going to work on this trench. And luckiest guy ever. So we're still friends and I still commission him to make stuff for me. He made some stuff during COVID for me that was really beautiful. And he teaches at SCAD now. He teaches fashion and design. But and that just sort of like got me interested in it. And then over the years, because, I couldn't afford the Helmut Lang stuff new, like that collection, the 98 collection, I started, if I would see it used anywhere, I'd pick it up no matter what, like I'd pick it up. So now I have like, I don't know, I'd say like maybe like 20 or 30 pieces from the 1998 menswear Helmut Lang collection.
That's cool.
That's funny.
I think maybe when I was 18 or it was when I graduated high school, my mom was like, I'll buy you one nice thing. As you're like, whatever.
What'd you
got
get?
a Helmut Lang.
So good.
It's like a top or a dress or something with like zippers all over it.
Yeah. When he was still at his label, it was like, oh my God. And then Prada bought it and it was bad. And then Uniqlo bought it and got really bad. But
yeah, that checks out. I ask about the relation to sobriety because I also think that's like a time when people start to figure out what they like and what their identity is, and also take more care in their presentation.
Yeah, and you have more money because it's like, when I was using, like every day was just like a very single-minded pursuit of finding enough money to cop. You know what I mean? So it's just like, suddenly I have all this time when I'm not waiting for a drug dealer in the corner or like trying to scam some money from somewhere, like get a job, like working in a kitchen for 2 days so that I can afford drugs or whatever, like all this time and all this money that seems to magically appear when you're not using, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's a weird combination, but I do find that my addictive personality like is still there. So when I get into something, I become like completely single-minded about like learning more about that thing.
Yeah. What is it you're learning obsessively about right now?
Oh, that's a good question. Recently it's been quantum mechanics. My family went to Switzerland last year to like go see where the Rickleys are from in the Alps.
Wow.
There's like a town where everybody's named Rickly. It was funny. They were so unfriendly too. They were like, we're Rickleys. And they're like, everybody here is Rickly. Like, get in the back of the line, basically. Who cares? Do you want to buy something, basically? Yeah. But we went there, and while we were in Switzerland, we went to CERN. So I got to see like the particle accelerator and kind of going through the museum and stuff. But that's been a like pretty major preoccupation of mine for the last year. Clothing stuff still.
That's low-key, quantum physics.
Yeah.
That's so cool. How do you feel like that relates to music?
Oh, it's really funny. There's actually a book about it. Like, I can't remember, it's like the jazz of physics or the physics of jazz, but it's about how like Ornette Coleman had figured out like, instead of like a circle of fifths, he had made this like harmonic circle of how things relate to each other for improvising, so that you'll always know where the next place to go is depending on what anybody else is playing. And he made this circle, and a quantum physicist saw it and was like, this is actually a quantum relationship, and like here's how it relates to physics. Like, I don't know how he figured this out. So there is a pretty huge through line to music, but I'm also not like a very gifted musician. So I can appreciate music, but it's sort of like, I feel like what I do is pretty far outside of music. I watch my guys do music and I'm like thrilled.
Did you think of yourself as a writer?
I always thought of myself more as like a writer with a microphone. When I say like I wrote like a bunch of Thursdays like songs, I came with like an overall idea, and then they made it something that's beautiful. Like for me, it's like if you heard me play it, you're like, don't do that. Whatever that is, don't do that. Like you're also not in a key, you're like between keys. But I do think that as somebody outside of music, I would come up with surprising ideas that shouldn't work. So it's like the chorus of, like I was talking to Norman, like the chorus of Cross Out the Eyes is basically like, instead of like, I'm thinking of what the vocal is and then I'm writing like something that could lay underneath that vocal, I'm like, we just follow the vocal. And so the whole thing goes like, pow, gow, 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 which is a very like strange thing to do, which makes it kind of like iconic. Mm-hmm. But it's only because like I couldn't do two things at once and be like, cross out the eyes, blur all the lines over. Like, which is what anybody else would do. But it's like, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes it's like the limitations actually make the thing better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's like about having good limitations, which I think is also like a huge, like the reason why I don't think like AI art is good is because the limitations are not human limitations. And like those limitations, the spots where like we put like our little bit of spirit into the music. Mm-hmm. And like that little bit of spirit that comes through not being able to do something you want to be able to do is like, you get all these little evolutionary jumps all the time.
Yeah. What are you listening to right now?
I listen to so much ambient music. It's like ridiculous. I have like a writing playlist because like lyrics distract me. Yeah, so I have a writing playlist that's like 6 or 7 weeks long. It's just like all this, and I just hit random because like otherwise I'd be listening to the beginning over and over and over again. Yeah. A lot of this guy like Raphael Anton Izrahi is his name. I feel like I always get one of his names wrong, but I listen to a lot of him. I also like I Return to Her Again and Again is the singer of Daughter. Like all of Daughter and then her solo record X-Ray. I just love her. Like I feel like she's like a heart after my own heart. So I want to sing with her at some point if I ever get a chance.
I love Daughter. I've never listened to the solo though, so I will.
Devastated. It's a breakup record. It's Oof. You can listen to one song on it, just listen to the song Romance. Okay. And you'll be able to tell if it's too much or not, because it's like
okay, so we can kind of wrap it up, but I wanted to hear what you have to say about Turnpike Divides.
What about it? What about Turnpike Divides?
Well, it's like one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. I was a little bit talking about that before because Turnpike Divides is the one that has the little postcard at the ending. And it's my favorite moment of any Thursday song. So I remember Steve wrote the beginning and then Tom wrote that big ending. And they were sort of separate for a while. Or we were wondering if they should be separate songs, even though they kind of came out of the same jam. And then we figured a way to bridge them together. And it all started coming together once I like thematically made that its own little island of this like beautiful postcard. And now it's just such a special song to me. Like we don't play it that often, but when we do, I'm always like, oh, play this tonight. And the whole song, I love the whole song. But I will say that whenever we play the song, I'm just like, when are we getting to that ending, you know? And then lyrically, I think like we had somebody at our record label that always used to say that I wrote like Bruce Springsteen. Like always, he'd be like, you're like Bruce, like you write like Bruce. And I'd be like, I'm from New Jersey, so I hate Bruce. Like he's like cop music. Like he's so like, you know, I mean, I just don't like it. And he was like, oh, it's such a shame. You're just the wrong generation. You don't get it. You like write like Bruce, like whatever. And so he smartly left me a lyric book. He was like, don't listen to the music, just read his lyrics. And I started reading his lyrics and I was like floored. It's like the literal opposite of what I thought he was about. Like it was so vulnerable and beautiful and like sensitive. And I was like, oh no, like I love Bruce now. You know what I mean? Like he's so misunderstood. The people that like him misunderstand him. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And so like Turnpike Divides to me was like my version of like a Bruce. You know, it's hard to sleep when you're born to run. Like it's like it was like a little bit of a nod to Bruce.
Yeah. I mean, he was like hurting. Yeah. He was like a unwell person.
And I always thought he was like Mr. New Jersey. And it's like every song's like, I got to get the fuck out of New Jersey. You know what I mean? Like, New Jersey's going to kill me. I was like, okay, I get you, Bruce. You're good.
Yeah. We're the same people. Cool. Well, thank you for talking to me.
Thank you. I always love talking to you.
I love talking to you too.